sense of the number of things going on right now. The reason we do congregational forums was to try to keep have an opportunity to dialogue and stay on the same page. It's not meant to be a briefing, okay, and you just sort of take it all in, but it's meant to be a thing where you hear about different things going on, and you get feedback on those things, and we work through stuff together. And then this isn't the only opportunity to do that. So as things come up in your own mind, please don't hesitate to ever reach out to any of the pastors, your elders, the various committee members, okay? We want, communication should be very easy and open and fun in the church. And so, question of the day is, who knows what this is? Oh, yes, that's right. I should have muted it out. Who was here when Harvest was at the Grigg Street Chapel? Wow. See? I just thought it would be fun to remind us of our roots a little bit. And many of us have never seen this building. I hadn't really until I looked it up on Google Maps. What a nice, fun technological advance that is. So first off, just the times that we're in. We're in a time of growth. We have been for some period now, and a time of transition and opportunity. A lot of times transitions can be a time for splintering, for insecurity, for when our fears come out. They can also be times for advances in how unified we are. It can be times for gluing. They can be times for redefinition of or clarification of who we are, all right? But we are, I think, for certain, in a time of transition. And I'll talk about some of those things in just a minute. But given that we're in that kind of a time, I just want this also, if I could just give you a vision for this to be a time where we stick together, we work together, we engage in the mission together. We recently had a session meeting, and for a devotional just considered the Israelites as they approached the Red Sea and how the Lord was leading them. And the Israelites, if you know that story, were not convinced that the Lord was leading them, and there was a lot of inner challenges, all right, with that transition from Egypt to the Promised Land, all right? And we're not identical with that, all right? But we are in a time of transition, and in that, we have questions, all right? Lord, are you really leading us? I mean, where are you leading us? And then things come out of that, all right? And so just like the Lord was very careful to show the Israelites in that time and for afterwards, the Lord's with them, even though they may not completely get everything, all right? And He's with us. And so as we step through times of transition together, let's make our vision for the Lord the thing that really leads us forward. And so it's a time when we as the church really need to be a whole church acting like the church. And so agenda for today is just to hit some of those major moving pieces. I think you know about all of these, but just so that they're on the table. And then some ministry highlights and Q&A. I think this first portion will be shortish, all right? And then we just have some time to talk, all right? So if there's nothing to talk about, that's okay too. But we're intentionally wanting to have space to raise thoughts and questions, and then some announcements. So first off, the church plant. Most recently, we had a congregational meeting where we approved extending a call to Reverend Mike Scout to come and be our church planter, and he most recently expressed his intent to accept that call. September 15th, we have a Presbytery meeting where he will be examined on the floor, and then provided that goes well, which I foresee that I would anticipate that it would go well, then they would approve the call and put the call in his hands, and then more formally he would receive the call, and then we'd set a date for installation, which will probably be in early October. He'd be installed and start the work. Between October to April or September, our plan is to do 6 to 9 month time on the grounds here at Harvest, building that launch team, preparing to launch. It's leadership development. It's recruiting people to that work, and learning how Harvest ministry works. Okay, and how do we partner as we do launch this so that it's most effective? And so that'll be happening there, and then April, September time frame, hopefully launch the work with regular services at that location, wherever exactly that is. Okay. What can you do to help on this? Well, I think for certain, all of us can help by praying for this work. It's a really big deal to plant a church. It's an exciting thing. It's an awesome expansion of ministry. So if you could think about keeping it as a regular part of your prayers, to pray that the Lord would expand his kingdom through this particular work. Also that he would protect it. And then two other things you could think about doing is you can help. Help can happen in lots of ways. Help can be, hey, neighbor, we have a church plant that's hoping to start up over in that area where you live, or you're looking for a church. Why don't you call this person and make connections like that? Put it on your mind, and let people know. Okay. Another way you can help, that church plant's going to need help with all kinds of things. They'll ask for it. And so that doesn't mean that you have to join that church plant per se, but see how you can help. And then also, you can do all of those things, and you can participate. Pray about whether the Lord might be leading you to participate in that work and join it. Okay? Chaplaincy. Things are going really well on this. I'll just tell you a fun story about how the Army works. The Army is, a lesson in patience and how to manage insecurity, all kinds of things. Your life is in someone else's hands, just like it is with us and the Lord, and we can be okay with that. And the Lord controls our life in the Army as well. One of the fun things I learned about the intuition, or I don't know, all sounds kind of derogatory. I'll just tell you the story, and you can decide what it means on your own. I recently learned that since I was born abroad, I was born abroad, all right, to U.S. citizens who speak English, in a U.S. military hospital where they also speak English, in the foreign country of England, from which the United States learned English. And as a result, the Army determined that it would be in their best interest to determine that for me to take an English proficiency exam to verify that I can speak English. Unfortunately, I'm happy to report it was a 45-minute exam, and I was able to complete it in 7 to 8 minutes, and I scored 100%. And so, yeah. So yeah, thank you for that. But there's been surprises, and the Lord's continue to open doors and make that move forward. The latest, or what's next, is we've got a Presbytery meeting on September 15th, same that Mike Scout will be at. There they will also approve the motion that you approved at our last congregational meeting to dissolve my call contingent on receiving an appointment with the Army, and then also approve a call contingent on the same, so that provided I do get picked up, then all that stuff is in order. The next step on the Army side, things moved. I was told that November was the soonest board that I was going to be able to meet, and then last week learned that things had come together more quickly, and so as a result, they're trying to move me forward to the September board. I don't know which meets at the end of September, so this month, which was like, okay. And then I don't know that will affect departure time at all, but it'll be nice to know where things are at. Right now, whether it's September or November, it seems likely, though can't be sure of this, that we'd probably get orders where I would need to show up at that first duty station in January or February, possibly earlier-ish, but not sure. So that's where that's at. On a third pastor, so would we look to hire a third pastor? It's sort of the natural follow-on. Okay, if this works out, then what are we doing there? And the short answer is yes, all right? But there's a number of things that really need to fall into place yet. So we need to find out whether I really do get picked up or not. And then there's lots of moving pieces going on here right now. And so it seems, the Staff Advisory Committee, the session, it seems most wise to let's see how these moving pieces sort themselves a little bit so that we've got greater clarity about what's the best way to fill that third position, okay? Just so you can have just an update on some of how we're thinking about those moving pieces, and if I leave, so one thing, like Wayne has been leaning into a lot more of the ministry oversight sort of thing. He'd probably move in to take over the chair of the walk ministry team. As a result of Wayne taking on some more of that, Dale will probably move back into taking high school theology, assisted by Eric. Eric is moving into sort of a primary leadership role with the youth group. Nikki has gotten involved with a lot of things that I've been involved with, so with trustees, with facilities expansion, and a lot of other things. Nikki's she's a workhorse, and it is great to have her on the team. And so that's just some of that stuff, but we are thinking about that and trying to plan accordingly. Building. I don't really have much to report here, except that a ton of work has been going on to move this forward. We're just still in progress, and so so that's that piece. If you could please keep this in prayer. It's a really big deal. Pray for the committee. Pray for the session. Pray for us as a church. What the church decides to do on this will have implications for probably a long time for the future of the ministry of Harvest. It's a building project. It's not everything, all right? But it is a big deal, okay? And so it's a thing certainly worthy of prayer and thinking about. If you happen to have thoughts and other questions on that, I don't know that I'm. It's in such a place of working through things that I don't know that I'm able to give you any definitive answers on things. But if you do have questions and thoughts on that, it would be great to just continue as normal. Submit those, share them with the Facilities Expansion Committee. The chair of that committee is Matt Nelson, so shoot him an email or grab him in the hallway when you see him. Also, your elder, let them know if you've got a question or what you're thinking about there. And then just a reminder, we have our fundraiser. We have a fundraiser in this regard on September 29th, and today is the last day to sign up for that. And you can sign up with Lindsay Gordon. She's out there right now by the Welcome Center, and she'll be out there again tonight after the evening service. So that's sort of the moving pieces side. Just a few ministry highlights. The Love and Truth Counseling Ministry has really taken root and had a great season of flourishing to start. So I want to thank you for that. And then just keep it on your radar. Please continue to pray for this ministry. This is where gospel really comes intimately applied to people's lives. So it's a great ministry. And if you or someone you know might be helped by it, please connect with it. So there's individual counseling available. We've got some support groups. The men's support group with James Fellowship at the end of last spring. They ended up splitting into two groups just because there were that many men that were finding help there. And so we'll have two men's James Fellowship groups coming into the fall as well. But that's a great opportunity to walk with other men and grow in Christ. Similar things going on the women's side. So side by side wives group. This is a group for wives of men who are struggling with sexual sin. If your wife, if your husband is in the James Fellowship, this might be a really good place for you to jump in. Okay? And just how do I wrestle through with how to support my husband through this? How do I think right thoughts through this? How do I guard myself against all kinds of things? All right? And where's the Lord in this kind of thing? Okay? And that group has gone really well. Heidi Friend is the person leading that, and it's twice a month on Tuesdays. And then there's that was side by side. And I've got these out of order here. So, no, I'm just out of order. Okay, so that's side by side that I just spoke with you about. Stewards of Grace is a group for women who are struggling in their own way. And it doesn't have to be a sinful thing. It can be grief. It can be wrestling with relationships. It can be everything that we as human beings struggle with in this life, and Susan Vanderway is the main contact there. And then we don't have, is Wayne in the room? I don't think so. Okay, and so just on the other is ministry highlights on Witness. There's a number of things that the Witness ministry team has been moving forward. So community engagement, you've already heard some about that. They also, do you want to speak to this, Wayne? Yeah, there you go. Johnny on the spot. All right, do we have a handheld? Yep, we got one.
So we're looking to develop a couple of outreach ministries here at Harvest, and so I'm very excited just to see some of these things moving forward. We've got an ESL ministry that is we're working to develop. Our last steps, we established a steering committee for that so that our group can put together a plan for what material we're going to use, how we're going to train teachers, when we're going to meet, those sorts of things. How is this going to be an intentionally evangelistic ministry here at Harvest? And so they're looking, the aim is to have information back from them in October so that we can start planning our next steps and hopefully have that up and running by the end of the year, beginning of next year. We've got the Ronald McDonald outreach, which we've started, and we're trying that through the end of the year to sort of see if this is an effective way to engage the medical community and those people who are experiencing mid to long-term hospitalization. So we'll see how that goes and how we can tweak that and improve that for outreach. And then we also will be having another park outreach event on September 22, whatever that Saturday is, I think. And so stay tuned for details on that. We're very encouraged by the congregation's response to the picnic and for people just being stretched in engaging people in Wyoming, and just excited because we think it really matters, and to see people then plug in at Harvest potentially because that is a really exciting thing. So,
thanks, Wayne. And that brings us to any questions, comments at this point.
have an auction scheduled for raising funds for the building. It would seem to me that if we're gathering funds for the building, we ought to have some concept of what we're going to do. I've heard a lot of discussion on the part of people, what are we going to do? And it just seems to me that having some knowledge of what we're going to do would help in raising funds and preparing for it.
Marv, I agree. I just don't know that we're quite there yet. And so we still have a fair bit of debt that we'd like to pay down on this building. And we know that we need to think hard and prepare for facilitating expanding the ministry here at Harvest. And we could continue to wait until we have all those pieces exactly nailed down. We're just so what we've done instead is since we know we need to go there, let's start going there, and as we make progress on the other front of exactly what that road's going to look like, then let's talk about that. We're just unfortunately. We had, I don't know how many people out in the foyer this morning, and this is just it's the second week in September. And our classrooms, I mean, if you want to see quite a marvel, watch Sue McCrory and it's 3-year-olds, right? What's that? Pre-Ks. Yeah, 4-year-olds, okay? It's amazing. It shouldn't be possible, but somehow something is happening in there. So there's great need, but we don't have all those pieces worked out yet, unfortunately. And so we've leaned towards trying to keep moving forward with pieces we know we need to do, and that's where that's at.
Two things before I ask my question. I'm a little bit in the dark. This is about the debt. I'm a little bit in the dark about what we're doing. And I'm glad to see that we're reducing the debt. But is there any particular reason why we're reducing it? Is it just because, or we're hoping to do something more beyond once we are paid off?
Well, we'd certainly like to pay off the debt. So I think that's for sure. As far as things beyond, I'd also say that's for sure. This facility is great and has brought us a long way, but we're beyond what this facility can support, and so we can either we can. This is a bad joke, but maybe it gets to the point. We can sort of have a number system where you can take a number at the door, and when people leave, we'll call you on the waiting list, and then you can come in. That sort of thing. We sort of cap growth, and no, of course, everybody's like, no, there's something certainly wrong about that, especially in light of the sermon this morning, right? Okay, so the Lord's brought people here to support this ministry and expand this ministry. We need to continue thinking about how to support that. And so, yes, paying down the debt, and yes, for something afterward. It's just that something afterward, while a lot of work has gone into, okay, what's the best way to do that? And a lot of progress, I think has been made. We're still working through that. And just to give us, I don't know if this is the right word, a little bit of soberness about that, this is a big, big deal. So for instance, when we moved into this facility, I think the church was maybe around 300 people, okay? And to go from a school to this was a daunting thing, and that we took on more debt than the church had ever considered before, raised more money than the church ever thought was possible to do so. And when we came in here, so all really huge things, decisions made that have significant impact on ministry. We moved in, and the Lord continued to build the ministry, and it took us a long time to pay off that debt. You know, we've had that debt from that decision in our budget for the last 10 years, okay? That's significant. And so before we nail down for our congregation, go this way, we want to make sure that as far as possible, we've got that figured out. And so that's still trying to get figured out.
Any updates on shepherding groups going into the craft room for Sundays potentially?
Yeah, great question. We did approve that, right, Don? Yes, thank you. Well, what a great question. So at our last session meeting, a motion came to consider to support having seats in here for people to come and join us for worship. Let's try having shepherding groups, a chunk of them, go on a rotation in the craft room, so that becomes an intentional overflow area, so that we can create more seats in here. It's on there as well, and it's in the bulletin. Okay, I'm glad that we have some people pulling some pieces together besides me, and amen. Okay, so anyway. We don't know for sure how well that's going to work, but we're going to try it for a little while and then reevaluate. But what that will look like, if your shepherding group is up, you're going to, instead of meeting in here, you'd meet in the craft room, and that will hopefully give us some more availability in the main auditorium. Yep, Sandra. Oh, we got a mic.
Oh, thank you. This is off the wall. I just thought of it. Not only do you need clarity in prayer, but is there any way to cut costs to do a second level, a second tier, right here in the sanctuary, and raise the ceiling?
You know, as off the wall as that may seem, we've thought about that, okay, and some other ideas. All right, a lot of stuff has been thought about, which is great. Okay, we want to do that. That it would seem would be cost prohibitive. All right. Another thing that facilities committee has done is just ask, okay, well, is there a way we can do something in this existing space just so that we can fit a little bit more in here? And it seems like there might be. As far as flipping the switch to do that hasn't happened yet. But they're exploring. They're doing really good work. So, Bob.
I'm just a little bit confused as to what is the that you're talking about where you don't have it figured out yet. Is it the physical plant, or where you're going with ministry? Or is it both together? I mean, you talk about being hung up. Is it we don't know what to build? The space?
Yeah.
Or we don't know for sure what ministries we're going towards?
What do you mean by where ministry is going?
Well, what we're going to do in terms of ministry. In other words, if you're going to erect a structure,
yep,
you're going to have to know what you're going to be used for. Are you going to be an overflow congregation? Is there going to be classrooms? Is there going to be a gym for involvement with the community? I mean, what are we doing? They have to go hand in hand, but I'm not sure whether you keep saying we're hung up and don't know what we're doing yet, whether you don't know what you're doing in terms of what you want to do in ministry in the future, or you don't know what you're doing in terms of the facilities we want to build.
Yeah, so thanks for the clarification on that. So, I don't, well, two things. One, I think we've got a pretty good sense of what ministry at Harvest is and where it's headed, okay? A lot of inputs were taken from committees in the congregation to try to make sure we've got a good sense of that, and I think that was done really, really well. As far as hung up or that sort of sense, I don't know if I maybe used something, words along those lines, but I don't know if that's the right expression for it. So, I mean, we started down a path to try to figure this out, and I think really started hard in May or June, okay? We're at the beginning of September, right? So that's not really a whole lot of time, and all during the summer. And so I think a lot of work has gone in, but it's pretty reasonable to expect that this should take some time to work through. And so it's just working through, I think, good. I guess it's just not there yet. So imagine we had this conversation. I don't know if this is a good analogy. It's not, but here it is, okay? Your wife says, hey, we need to move, all right? So you say, okay, well, that sounds good. Let's move. We're going to look at houses and that sort of thing. A week later, you follow up and you say, well, why haven't we moved yet? I mean, what's taken so long? All right? And you're like, well, I mean, this is a pretty big decision. And there's a lot of things to look at. And so I'd say that's kind of where we're at, all right? This is a big decision. It will have significant impact on the future of Harvest Ministry for maybe not a single generation, but multiple generations. So that's a big deal. It will cost a lot of money, no matter what, just like it did to move here. That matters, all right? And the committee's been working at it, the session's been working at it, and they're working hard. But I'd say we're at, it makes sense that it's not all the way figured out yet. So, yes, Sandra.
I think what Bob wanted to know, what totally the building expansion involved. We're just growing. The church is growing, obviously.
Yep. Okay, well, in that respect, I think it's clearly we're thinking about worship space. We don't have enough worship space. We're thinking about fellowship space. We have such a fishbowl out there that is so small that some people, it is daunting to think about how you would emergency exit this place, okay? And I don't just mean for the fire escape. I mean for, it's dangerous navigating out there sometimes. Just most recently, we've tried to give some space for the kids to come up, all right? Because before, they were plowing this way, and we were plowing the opposite way, and, we don't have enough fellowship space. We don't have enough space, all right? And the same thing with education. Again, if you get a chance, I should take a picture, all right, of Sue McCrory with the 4-year-olds, okay? All right? But we've got that in spades all over our education space. So those are really kind of top 3 things and that we're stuck in. And, yep. Any other questions? Yep.
I don't think it's true that we weren't considering expansion until just recently. We were actually considering expansion way back before we built New City. And a bunch of our money went to build New City. Now we're doing the same thing. We can't pay off our debt, and we're doing another church plant. Another question I have is, why don't we do 2 services? If we can't fit everybody in here for one service. Why not go to 2 services? A lot of churches do that. Has a session considered that? But don't tell me this is a new issue, because I've been here long enough to know that the expansion, the money for our expansion went to buy the church building at New City. That was supposed to be for our expansion here.
Yeah.
So don't tell me it's just being looked at. A lot of us have been around long enough to know that it's not a new issue. It's an old issue. When we built this building, there were already supposed to be plans to expand this building way back then. So it's not a new issue. You weren't here then,
Yep.
but it's not a new issue. So.
Yeah, that's a fair point. So as far as thinking about expanding, no, that's not new, and it does date back to then, and it dates back before then. I mean, you could go back to the building of this building was not simply this building, but plans were drawn up for how do you, you use this building, how do you expand from there? All right, and that's from before this building was even built. You know, so that's true. But as far as and it's also true that, you know, when thinking about doing the church plant with New City, a decision was made to, all right, we're going to put this on standby, and we're going to leverage our support to make this church go, and the church does that. You know, we ought to make the best plans that we possibly can, and sometimes the Lord puts opportunities and things in our path and we have an obligation to think that stuff through. And sometimes that makes us rethink the original plan that we had, you know? And that's what I would say happened with New City. As far as this most recent work of, okay, how do we support expanding the ministry of Harvest, as far as working with setting up a facilities expansion committee to really go deep dive on that, and how do we do that best, that happened not that long ago, and they've done a lot of work. All right, so I guess that's the context for that piece. And then you had another point, and I've lost it. 2 services, great, thanks. So 2 services we have thought about. We set a committee up to look at that last year, and we were not as full last year when they looked at that. Which has implications to just how needed that is. All right, when it's just sort of staring you in the face, but that's something that's come up again, and so we are thinking about that. I don't know how things are going to work out with facilities expansion, but it's very possible that facilities expansion would have us go to 2 services as just how that works out for